undefeated team left and almost the highest scoring team in the league. Only makes sense to put them at the top spot. The new arrivals have looked very well early out of the gate for the squad, filling some holes that we were concerned about earlier in the year. Things are looking bright right now. After kicking off the season in a pretty mediocre way, this team has found its groove, being the highest scoring squad over the last 2 weeks, led by its trio of potential RB1s. And really the only hole at this point is what was originally the wide receiver 1 position with Allen Robinson. But DJ Moore has more than made up with that, with Sam Darnold really locking into him on every single play, especially with McCaffrey out. So if QB1 comes back for the Bears, Allen Robinson picks up his pace, then this team is looking pretty good. While the squad put up a pretty pedestrian performance, the outlook is still very bright. Reason for the poor performance, we saw Keenan Allen, Cooper Kupp, and Tyler Lockett all have an extremely underwhelming performance. Pretty rare that we're going to see another week where all three of them really shit the bed. Tyler Lockett's pretty volatile, but Cooper Kupp and Keenan Allen should be relatively consistent. So not dropping this squad and not raising them either, of course, but keeping them steady at 3. Was a loss for me this week, but still a pretty good performance against a highly touted team. And we saw tons of other embarrassments that caused teams to drop a lot further. And the teams that looked well were a lot further down the rankings. So because of that, not a lot of room to play around with myself right now. I'm going to keep that in. Keep myself at number 4. As the Bears go, so do Kyle Lieber. Every week the Bears have won. This squad has come out firing on all cylinders, and every week the Bears have lost. The squad comes out of the gate extremely depressed, bawling their eyes out all over the field. Really tough to have any analysis on the squad at this point with the Jekyll and Hyde performances, but because of strong performance this week, moved them up to number 5. Well, it was short-lived at the top, as Miles Sanders and the squad go plummeting back down the rankings to number 6. Another reason for concern, it looks like the Cowboys actually aren't going to be the pass-happy team that everyone anticipated, with both Zeke and Pollard getting tons of touches. Could be another reason for concern at the wide receiver 2 spot. Now, Kareem makes up for Miles Sanders' fall, but still a couple holes and a bad performance this week, causing this team to drop down the rankings. One of our bigger gainers this week, moving up from 10 to 7. Singer gets on the board with that first win, making sure that he doesn't come out as slow as he did last year. Highest scoring team, actually, to this point, so this could be an omen for things to come. And with a couple more wins, I mean, this squad could easily shoot up the rankings. All running backs looking good this week. Pickup of the year? Question mark. I mean, honestly, that question might be answered, and we know whoever has a pickup of the year usually goes far in the playoffs. I have no research to back that up. I can only think of the man we will not actually name picking up Philip Lindsay years ago, and then he won the Super Bowl. Will we see it this year? Only time will tell. Another organization that's staying flat where they were last week, picked up the win, but really had to grind that one out against maybe the worst team in the league and maybe the worst owner the ICPA has ever seen. A lot of question marks, though. Chris Carson, woof, what is going on there? Is Alex Collins the RB1 out of nowhere? Kamara, he's an RB1, but really he's the back half of the RB1s, maybe the last 3 RB1s. Mooney causing problems. Deontay Johnson is, back, and he looks great, but we know he's going to get injured again. This team needs A.J. Brown back, and they don't need him just back. They need the 2020 A.J. Brown back. That could go a long way for this team until we see that, though. A lot of question marks here, but pulled out the win, so I'm not dropping them. This organization put up an L this week, but it was still a very happy bingo night for Old Man Verde and the rest of the Senior Center, as one of the more anticipated questions was finally answered is Saquon back. And boy, he looked good this past week. And really, the rest of the Giants' offense as a whole looks pretty good. Daniel Jones, throwing for 400 yards. And now with Saquon and Tyreek Hill back in the starting lineup, ready to put up 30 or 40 points. At a moment's notice in the same week, I think we're going to see a lot of high-scoring victories for the squad in the future. So even with the loss, move them up to number 9, especially with some of how the other bottom-tier teams performed. Don't look now, but Plymouth's back to 500, and I'm ready to give my first analysis on this team for this season, raising them from the bottom spot where they've lived this entire year to now number 10. Now, Joe Mixon is injured. That's not good. But Terry McLaurin looking good, Julio Jones, Travis Kelce, Sanders looking like an actually every week flex starter. This team might be able to figure out a way to maintain relevancy even with Joe Mixon's injury. Not too many holes, but not a lot of excitement on this squad. So might not be a riser here in the future, but at least for now, is not a bottom 2 team. Early on, it looked like this team was going to pick up right where it left off last year, coming out of the gates hot, but not of late. Racking up 3 straight losses in very underwhelming fashion. And a lot of alarms going off now on North Orleans Street with DeAndre Hopkins looking very pedestrian. Dalvin Cook comes back in a timeshare. Does that mean he's not healthy? Does that mean he'll never be healthy? Who knows? Zach Moss has now entered the mix as RB2 with Myles Gaskin underperforming. Really need to get some things straightened out here before they rise back up the rankings. So, biggest plummeter of this week, going from last week, he was at number 3 all the way down to number 11, sitting right next to his roommate coming up next on the rankings.